Afomia, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
Who's Afomia?
I'm a creative storyteller. Afomia is a performer. Afomia is a people person.
Wow.
I've gone through a lot of evolutions.
Okay.
I've had a lot of jobs. I've taken on a lot of roles.
Do you really believe that we own our own narrative or stories?
My parents never directly told me that America was amazing. You know what told me America was amazing? The propaganda we have.
Wow.
This is called propaganda storytelling. TV shows, movies, books, magazines, artists, celebrities made me feel like I was a part of the greatest nation in the world.
I know you work with young people. Do you have hope that the young people of the country will change the country? Afomia, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, I'm very excited that we are going to talk about the things that we love most, especially about Ethiopia, a different experience of an Ethiopian living in the other part of the world, in the US, that is you. So let's start by talking about who Afomia is. Who's Afomia?
Well, first of all, Afomia is very excited to be here.
All right.
It's really cool to see this podcast materialize in the way that it has.
All right.
You know, Abrish, I really believe in you, and
Thank you.
I respect the level of insight you bring to every conversation. Sometimes I feel like so many of our conversations have already been podcast episodes. So I'm glad we're formalizing it.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Who is Afomia? You know, that's a question that I've been refining for a long time.
All right.
Because I feel like I've gone through a lot of evolutions.
Okay.
I've had a lot of jobs. I've taken on a lot of roles. I've had a lot of internal experiences as well too. The thing that I've landed on right now is that I'm a creative storyteller.
All right. All right.
I'm a performer by trade. That's something that was innate within me from a young age. I couldn't even fight it if I wanted to. I loved attention.
Mm-hmm. All right.
I loved being seen, at least in the house. You know,
yeah.
I'd make my siblings watch me. I would come down the stairs in like a tutu and tiara.
All right.
And I'd stand in front of the TV and I would scream, "This is my show." And my mom, she'd be like, clap for your sister. And then my siblings would get mad because I'm standing in front of like Power Rangers and blocking them, you know, so it's like, and I don't even remember those things. Like, I don't remember feeling that way or needing to take that on. But if you were to ask my siblings, like, Afomia is a performer. Afomia is a people person.
Wow.
Always have been. I do love, I'm the type of person who thinks that strangers are just people you haven't met yet, like friends you haven't met yet, you know? I really love getting to understand people and hear their stories. I love sharing mine as well too. So I guess a creative storyteller, a performer, a people person. And I'm definitely I don't know if the word is thinker, but I'm very cerebral. I'm constantly analyzing. I'm a quick processor.
All right.
So I can overwhelm people in conversations sometimes. I'm sure I've overwhelmed you before in conversations.
Yeah. I don't have to lie because it's my podcast and the truth should be there. Yeah,
my nickname in the house was Afu.
Yeah.
A lot of ways. And the mouse I don't like. So
I never thought of it that way.
Yeah, it is a cool,
Yeah. Amazing. I mean, hearing about your family, I understand that it's not only you, playing what you're playing, contributing what you're contributing in the creative industry. Is it from the family or is it a family thing to be in the creative way of things?
My sister is not a performer at all. She does not like the limelight. She does not like attention on her. And my mom won't speak in public. She's beautiful, really graceful, really elegant. And my father was a really educational, really intellectual person. I think I carry a lot of those traits as well too. He loved to analyze things. He was very into self-development. He was a dentist by trade, a scholar. And yeah, not really one for the attention, but he kind of got the attention because of his achievements and his position in our community. So I grew up in Dallas. Yeah. And we've got a pretty big Ethiopian community there.
I know.
And my dad moved to Dallas. He moved to the US in 1970, found his way to Dallas around 1974, 1975. So he was one of the first Ethiopians in the area, and he kind of got to see the community grow. Because he was a dentist as well, we met and were around a lot of Ethiopians. We were part of the Orthodox Church there, one of them. And it just like, we had mahabars and we were surrounded by our community growing up. So I always felt Ethiopian.
All right.
Maybe not Ethiopian enough. I know you've heard that conversation before for sure. But it wasn't, my culture wasn't new to me. Wow. Whether or not I'm that great at it now. But we spoke a lot of Amharic in the house. And yeah, I think I may have strayed from the question.
No. I'm loving this version of it.
Sure, yeah. So I guess the question was like, what does creativity look like in our family? It's not typical, I think, for Ethiopian parents to encourage a sort of artistic expression in their children as a full-time career. I wouldn't say a lot, especially in the US.
Absolutely.
I don't know a single other Ethiopian diaspora, not to say that there isn't any, but I personally didn't know. Back when I graduated in 2013, I didn't know another Ethiopian that was majoring in drama or theater. And my loophole was I got a talent scholarship. So my parents really could invite me on it.
Wow.
But yeah, I got a talent scholarship to the school my dad wanted me to go to. Wow. So I was very lucky. I felt like I fell in that sort of sweet spot. But it's not something typically that Ethiopian parents, I feel like in the US, push their kids to do or are happy about. So I did carry that with me as like this, I'm embarrassing my parents. I'm not bringing them pride. I'm not bringing them joy. My dad very much wanted me to take on his practice. So he wanted me to be a dentist. But I think it's something you have to really love. And while I really loved my father, I don't know that would have made the best dentist.
Yeah.
Can you imagine?
I cannot imagine Afomia being in a different profession than what she's doing right now. So yeah, you can do a lot of things, but doing some justice is something else. So yeah.
I think at the root of it, your parents just want you to do something that can actually benefit, one, that can make you financially stable. Absolutely. Right? Because they want the best for you. But two, they also think that wanted you to have a career that could give back. One of the main reasons my dad was a dentist is because he knew that dentistry wasn't something that was very expanded in Ethiopia. Like it's a market that there was a high demand for dentists in Ethiopia at the time. Sure. And I think he always planned on coming back. He passed away, unfortunately, before he could. But yeah, and I think even I didn't think, okay, what am I going to do with my theater degree? How is that going to help or impact Ethiopia in any specific way? Surprise, surprise, here I found a way.
Yeah, in Ethiopia. Yeah. So, I remember our conversation about your dad and the contributions that he has in the community in the US, in Dallas. And I really appreciate what he has done in the US. And I don't think that's only your dad, but we have people moving to the US, going to the US and doing a lot of great things. But I know that it is not the same for all people that are moving to the US and contributing, but we met people like that and we respect and we love those people. Especially, for example, in the Ethiopian Diaspora Trust Fund, we have these individuals that are contributing a lot, and really to Ethiopia and to the community that they're living in the US. So we don't really give them the proper appreciation and the proper love, I believe, because unless we have people like yourself telling us about their contribution, or unless these people are coming back to Ethiopia and doing what they are doing right now, unless we see them doing it, we don't know what they are contributing. So I believe there should be something, some way of channeling their contribution to Ethiopia, including your dad and the others.
My dad, like many other figures in the community in the Dallas area, was really helpful for people who were trying to come. Right?
Yeah.
I think Ethiopians, we're great at helping our community navigate transitioning into a new city, a new place. We're very loving, we're very supporting. There's a lot of generosity in our culture. But also, I think sometimes it can feel very irrelevant. Whatever amazing thing my dad maybe have done in America might not feel relevant to the people right here, right now. And in the same way that like my life I didn't feel like my life was relevant to people in Ethiopia, or that before I came back, right?
Yeah.
Before I was, I felt like I think the best way to say it is that there's a massive gap. And unless there's something to bridge you back, you will stay disconnected forever. And I'm really glad we're having this conversation, because when I stumbled upon this job, and I think that it was divine, I think God wanted me to. And I'm so grateful, because I never would have anticipated, we talk about this a lot, I never would have anticipated that I'd be working for the Ethiopian Diaspora Trust Fund. I never would have anticipated that I'd be working in Ethiopia. I was in LA trying to be an actor. So that was a very different path. And sometimes when you're called to do something, your whole world just shifts. And it did. And what I realized was there was so much about Ethiopia that I didn't know. And that was by design. I think even looking back at some of the first depictions of Ethiopia that I had, I came to Ethiopia for the first time at 12 years old. And even though my parents had told me about Ethiopia and their experiences of Ethiopia, they left in like the 80s. Or my dad left in like 1970, and my mom left in the 80s, right? So they have there's a time capsule almost, and they're stuck in. It did not match the Ethiopia that I saw. I mean, this is so silly. But I thought I was going to be greeted by like Lion King when I got here. Like, wow. I'm like 12. I'm like, I get to Bole International Airport, and I'm like, okay, where are the animals? Where are these things? And it's like, you're a child, right? But like, you don't realize how powerful the few narratives that you've seen of Africa are on you. Or, the few things you see are the music videos of the like folk music that they play in the house. And it's just like all in the countryside. So you just think that's all Ethiopia is. And while it is a big portion of Ethiopia, it's not all of Ethiopia. And so I remember being shocked and an interest, being like, wow, this is very developed. Like I didn't expect to see this. A lot of what I saw growing up was like about Ethiopia's scarcity. You saw children who were starving with bellies that are bloated, and flies around their face. Like that's the image that I constantly remember. And it wasn't just me. All of my community saw that too. I grew up in a predominantly white area. And so that's what everyone thought of Ethiopia as well. And I hadn't been there yet, so I really couldn't negate that experience. So there's a limiting belief. And even after you visit Ethiopia, you still feel like there's this disconnect of like, oh, because when you come to visit, you're here for a short period of time, and you're kind of separated or treated differently. Oh, the diaspora family members, and it's like this, you don't actually know where you fit, and they don't know where you fit either. And it's so weird to look at people who look like you and have such a different experience than you do. And no one's teaching you how to connect. Like we have to navigate that in our own way, where our parents don't actually have that problem in the same way that we do. They may have it. I don't know what the experience would be like for someone who's born and raised here, left for a long period of time, and has come back. I'm not sure what that experience is. I only know the experience of being Ethiopian, being born somewhere else, coming here for the first time at 12, having this culture shock of being like, wow, there's all this available to me. Also experiencing the weight of the the changes that need to happen or the weight of the challenges in the country as well too, and not knowing how to solve for that either, feeling hopeless. And then you kind of think of Ethiopia as the place that you go to see your family every so often whenever there's a wedding or something. And it's an interesting sort of identity, a bit of an identity crisis, I would say. I experienced an identity crisis, trying to navigate what it's like to be Black in America, what it's like to be an Ethiopian American first generation, what it's like to not feel Ethiopian enough, what it's like to not feel American enough, like not necessarily sure of your belonging, what it's like to have an identity different from your parents. I didn't feel like our parents struggled with their identity at all. Like they had no problem. They're like, we're Ethiopian. That's it. We just so happen to live here. We are Ethiopian.
Wow.
You know, when you walked through the threshold of my parents' home in Plano, Texas, you were in Ethiopia. Like,
you've been telling me about this experience that you have at home, baking injera and doing all kind of things like we do it in here in Ethiopia.
Yes, my parents kept a very they didn't. I mean, sure, maybe to some people it would feel westernized, but to somebody who lived in the U.S., my house was not American at all. So much so that if I brought friends over, they were like, where are we? Like, you know, what type of portal did we step into?
Yeah.
And I actually loved it. I loved it a lot, especially for people who were appreciative of it. I think of it as an honor to be able to bring my friends to my parents' home. I remember when I went to college and the few times I would bring friends back with me, they would have stories to tell people in the dorms about it, like how amazing of the cultural experience they had. And it filled me with pride. I'm very proud to be Ethiopian. Very proud to be Ethiopian. I didn't always know what to do with the pride, how to carry it. I felt overwhelmed by current affairs in Ethiopia. I never felt like I knew enough about the history. I never felt like I understood any of the struggles that were happening. Like I couldn't get the context. Things felt so confusing. I think the best way I could describe it is like the viewpoint I had of Ethiopia was overwhelm. And maybe even guilt.
Wow.
A lot of guilt and shame around not having a solution or feeling like being a diaspora, you are in this position of privilege, that you have a perspective that's maybe different or that you have opportunities that maybe some people in Ethiopia don't have, even though there are people in Ethiopia with better privilege than maybe I experienced in my childhood. Sure, right? Maybe not the majority of Ethiopia, but there are Ethiopians that have better experiences, right? It's not to put yourself in a pedestal, but there was this feeling of this pressure of like, you should have solutions for the people here. Like you should care about Ethiopia enough. But it's challenging, again, when you are trying, where do we get to form the connection? Where do we get to form the bond with Ethiopia? You know, as diaspora. And that's crucial. That's critical. Because our parents' time is, I already lost my father, right? I think some of the reason why I feel so passionate about the work that I'm doing here is it kind of keeps my dad alive to me in a lot of ways. But if we don't carry this love of Ethiopia with us, it will die with us. And that's a heavy weight to carry, especially for people who were not born on this land. So there's this feeling of how do I create it? How do I find it? Because I don't want to lose this. It's so special. It's so powerful. It's so important. And I'm lucky that I get to be a part of a project like the Great Rift Valley Innovation Summit that really helped me kind of connect and be like, whoa, there's something that's rooting me here in a really powerful way. Because I made a LinkedIn post about this recently, the power of narratives.
True.
And I'm passionate about storytelling.
I was about to ask you about narratives and how actually not only Ethiopia but Africa is depicted in the media, or not only in the media, actually in the perception of the people living outside of Africa. So there is this understanding which is not real for us, for the people or individuals living in Ethiopia or the continent of Africa in general. So do you think the depiction that we get from the West, or the rest of the world is okay, or does that really portray what Ethiopia is or what Africa is? Because we had this conversation about people having a different perception than what we have in here. We live here, we breathe the air, and we do all kind of things in here. But people have this understanding of what Africa is. You mentioned some of the things that you had when you come back to Ethiopia, but other than that, do you believe the rest of the world really understand what Africa or Ethiopia is? And do you think that the narrative that is given for the continent of Africa or Ethiopia is a correct one?
I think the narratives around Africa that we see growing up are really lazy.
Mm-hmm.
They lack nuance. They try to contextualize Africa or even Ethiopia as a country in the context of, or they try to contextualize it in a framework that doesn't match where we are. They compare it to, I don't feel like they do the work to understand it. So what happens is we are repetitively shown a portion of a reality. I'm not saying Ethiopia doesn't have challenges. It definitely does have challenges. We are repetitively shown the challenges of Ethiopia, the scarcity of Ethiopia, to the point with which we imagine there isn't anything that can survive there at all. There is no hope, is what we're told often. It's maybe not in words, but insinuations through the context, through the music, through the things that you see, right? So much so that when I was making content, back in March of last year when I got here, which is again my first trip in 11 years to Ethiopia, I was specifically showing a lot of experiences that were luxury in Ethiopia, and I was doing that intentionally because one, I didn't know they existed, yeah, and two, I felt like they deserved to be seen. Right? There's so many other diaspora I know that haven't gone back in years, or maybe have never been. And I thought they deserved to see it. I was proud of these things. And I would get a lot of criticism being like, you're showing only one side of Ethiopia. You're showing only one side of Addis Ababa. You're only showing X, Y, or Z. But let me tell you something. I've lived in LA for 8 years. I go to Venice. I take a photo of a matcha in a cute cafe, and no one's saying, you're not showing us Skid Row. So I feel like after a certain point, even if what you're showing is grounded in truth, if you're only showing a segment of it repetitively, it's manipulation. Yeah. And I have to wonder who benefits from it. You know, like when it comes to our narratives, we really got to start asking who's holding the pen. And I was very excited to be able to show pieces of Ethiopia that were also true, that also exist, that are developing, right? With the GRV summit, it's my absolute pleasure. I mean, I spent from 11 to 5 today interviewing the finalists about these are young innovators working in healthcare, education, and agriculture, solving critical issues in these key sectors with bold innovations and solutions. And I am so excited to be able to share that these innovations and these innovators exist in this market because I didn't know they did, right? And if you're not looking for it, and if you don't believe it's possible, you know what you focus on expands, right? And again, I was talking about the narratives that I saw when I was growing up, right? The narratives that we see even now, what my parents see when they look at news of Ethiopia, it's very inflammatory. Wow. Right? While it might be a section of the truth, while it might be a portion and very much grounded in truth, it's not the entire picture. Again, so it's like, I feel like, sure, I could be accused of showing only Etowasana or only specific sides of Ethiopia, but I do feel like they deserve to be seen as well too. I do feel like these stories of innovation and finalists deserve to be seen. I do feel like these new businesses and these amazing, like the series I got to do last year with business owners, designers, resorts, you know, like how amazing that in Ethiopia we have Ethiopian-owned resort chains, like Kriftu, for example. I was so proud. when I got to experience that last year. I did a solo trip for my birthday. And I went to Debre Zeit and saw the Kufju there. And it's like, how amazing that we, as an African nation, have an Ethiopian-owned chain. Not just one, we have many, right? Yeah. Whereas most African nations have like resorts and things like that are owned by foreigners, right? There's so many things that are happening here that are exciting and that deserve to be told. And I think what we're missing out on is avenues, bridges, people who are really interested in sharing that side and interested in inspiring hope. Yeah.
Yeah. But I'm mentioning about this, the experience we have and the things that we have in Africa and Ethiopia. Do you really believe that we own our own narrative or stories?
Okay, that's a really great question. And I think that my parents never told me Ethiopia wasn't like that. My parents never made Ethiopia seem less than to me. It wasn't them. It wasn't from hearing it from them, right? My parents never directly told me that America was amazing, right? You know what told me America was amazing? The propaganda we have.
Wow.
Let's keep it real.
Yeah.
You know, and propaganda is a word with connotation to it, right? But take the connotation out of it. The story, just call propaganda storytelling, right? When it's coming from the other side, you call it propaganda. When it's on your side, it's good marketing. I don't.
Definitely. Yeah.
So America has amazing marketing.
Yeah.
We do. We have fantastic marketing, right? TV shows, movies, books, you know, magazines, artists, celebrities made me feel like I was a part of the greatest nation in the world. Being American felt amazing, incredible. But I didn't have that same sort of representation about Ethiopia. So I always thought of Ethiopia as being less than. And that's not intentional. That was subconscious. And so when you think about the narratives that are happening here, it's like, oh, I got a good one for you, actually. I was just in Paris. I told you I was at the Louvre with my best friend.
Yeah.
Her name is Chelsea. She's American. And she didn't know much about Ethiopia before meeting me, like a lot of my friends typically. And I remember we were in this room that was like an Egyptian room, like about Egypt and its legacy and history. And there was a big map on the wall. And she saw that the Nile River went all the way down to Ethiopia. She's like, I didn't know the Nile I didn't know Ethiopia has the Nile in it as well, too. Like, I didn't know the Nile was in Ethiopia. And I'm like, yeah. And she's thinking about it, and she's like, that's incredible. And she's like, you know, Ethiopia was an empire at one point? Like, yes, it definitely was.
Yeah.
You know? And then she was like, you know, I didn't even know that coffee originated from Ethiopia if it wasn't for you. I was like, yeah. And then she asked, why doesn't Ethiopia have a room?
Wow.
And I was waiting for that question too, because, you know, as soon as I got into Egypt room, I was thinking the same thing. I was like, you know, like, and I think Ethiopians feel that way all the time. They're always like, yeah, they downplay us, whatever. We downplay ourselves. That's another issue as well. And so we decided to ask ChatGPT.
Wow. I just want to hear that.
You want to hear the ChatGPT response? Yeah, I'll pull it up because it was fascinating. And I think in a lot of ways it's accurate. But there's a lot of, you know, global narratives around keeping, I think, Africa and even Ethiopia, because Ethiopia's legacy is a formidable one in a lot of ways, keeping it small. So it said, that's a powerful and an important question, and the answer is layered, rooted in colonialism, media influence, racial politics, and narrative control. The first one says, colonial narratives and Eurocentric historiographies. Again, this is AI pulling stuff from the internet, right? But we can make our own judgments because we're capable human beings, right? I'm not trying to tell anybody how to think. I just thought this was interesting information. It said, Western historians have long romanticized Egypt because it fit neatly into a Greco-Roman framework, framing ancient Egypt as the cradle of Western civilization. Thus, it's a little bit more palatable to European scholars. Whereas Ethiopia, on the other hand, represented Black African sovereignty, independence, and resistance, specifically talking about the Battle of Adwa. And it challenged colonial power structures. So it's minimized oftentimes in Western culture and Western education and in media. So often do people not know that I've encountered that Ethiopia was never colonized. And this is Hollywood and pop culture. Ethiopia hasn't been given the same sort of treatment, a cinematic treatment, right? Like, I mean, you've seen Egypt portrayed in lots of movies, you know, Mummy, is it Indiana Jones, like in Michael Jackson's music video, you know, Remember the Time. You see Egypt in a lot of things, right? And they're wondering, why don't you see Ethiopia in that media? It's not represented in that same way. It's usually often shown through a lens of poverty, famine, or charity. A lot of people don't know. And then it says also the religious and biblical legacy is overlooked. Ethiopia is one of the oldest Christian traditions in the world. It says Aksum adopted Christianity in the 4th century before Rome did. Now, I know Ethiopia has been was Christian nation for a long time. I didn't know that it was Christian before Rome. Even I was learning something new, you know? And then Africa's own internalized narratives. This is something I didn't consider. So all the other African countries, their school systems were created by their colonizers. So why would they want to celebrate the Nubian, the Malian, or the Ethiopian empires? Or talk about Black resistance? Because that would question what their role was in their countries. And then the other one that I thought was really interesting was the lack of global storytelling and infrastructure. So Egypt has benefited from massive tourism investment, archaeological funding, and state branding. And it says Ethiopia hasn't had the same, it says Ethiopia hasn't invested similarly in global storytelling or heritage export, though that is changing. Now, I'm not sure what the actual investment looks like, right, in those markets, but I do think that there's a way that we could support it. It's growing. I do think that we're building and telling our stories a bit more, but it's definitely an area that we can continue to develop in. And I think it's a huge role that diaspora play. I wouldn't even say I'm a great example because there's so much about Ethiopian history that I don't know. There's so much about the context of this country that I still am wrapping my mind around. And the best thing I can find myself doing right now is trying to take the pen back in this way, the narrative, by giving it to people that I'm seeing here. Like the series that I did where I was spotlighting different businesses that were here. That was a way of showing authentic experiences that I'm having at this spa, at this at this leather store, at this like Abashakami store, like a genuine take on it, you know, or like the 24-hour episode that I did as well too, so to show like, okay, this is what a day in my life can look like here. This is what a day in your life can look like here. These are the places you can go to. You know, if you want to come and visit and see what's happening in Ethiopia, these are all owned by local businessmen and businesswomen, you know, entrepreneurs building something out of this country and doing it with so much passion. And I want to show that. That's not fake. It's real. It's happening. I'm seeing it here. I'm inspired every day. There are people my same age. I met women my same age who have multiple companies, multiple children, running their household. And I'm like, how do they do it? They're incredible. And I think that I think that's the face of Ethiopia that we need to start seeing as well. Those are the narratives and the stories that we need to start seeing as well. I don't think it's about coming here and having all the answers. I think it's about showing up and being willing to see with an open heart and open eyes the opportunities that exist here. If you want to be a part of a solution, how you can humbly bring yourself to that. At least that's been my journey. I'm so passionate about it that I feel like sometimes I'm all over the place. It's just, I see a huge potential. I recognize the role we can play here. I recognize how diaspora can be helpful, how we can bring our insights to partner with people here who have context. And one thing I'll say that I feel like Ethiopians who are here locally have over diaspora is resilience. This market is incredibly resilient. It's taught me a lot of discipline. It's taught me a lot of faith. And that's a beautiful thing. The humility of being able to say, there's something that I can learn from this market. There's something I can learn from the people here. But that starts by not separating ourselves.
Mm.
I wish we didn't have this term diaspora.
I mean, I had this conversation with people right after publishing an episode about this issue, about the term diaspora, and people were comparing it to how other communities living dispersed across different areas, different nations call themselves community. Um, I mean, the group of that in this community and things like that. Would giving it a name, a different name or designation, bring a change? For example, I have this idea in my mind. I'm thinking about it. We can be called a diaspora, but at the same time, we can bring the change that we want. We can bring the impact that we want. We can have that collaborative spirit so that change can be introduced or brought into the community and we can give back to the country. So I just want you to tell me if the naming, the designation of diaspora has anything to do with any kind of contribution that the community can give back to the community, Ethiopia, or anything like that. Why are we focused on that?
Here's maybe an unpopular opinion.
Yeah.
I don't think we lack opportunities to what's the right way I'm trying to say this? We are in abundance of separating ourselves as Ethiopians. I feel like we have too many things that separate us already. We've got religion, we've got tribes, we've got diaspora status, we've got all these. It's like we're so invested in segmenting ourselves. How are we going to be unified? Like, how are we going to come together? I have no interest in saying I'm anything other than Ethiopian at this point, because it feels like even the term diaspora, like, I get it. I mean, and I work for, I'm a consultant for the Ethiopian Diaspora Trust Fund, so I recognize sometimes distinctions are necessary, but at this point, I wonder if it does more harm, right? Like, I'm Ethiopian. I get that I don't always have the same experience that Ethiopians who grew up here have, but I have blood in my veins and the love in my heart, right? And I will do what it takes to earn it. But I also feel like there's no one who can take it away from me, right? And even these terms, I feel like they're meant to separate us or to categorize us in this way of like, you are this thing now, and it stops us from actually getting to understand the person. Even I think the term diaspora is even detrimental to diaspora themselves. It creates some sort of hierarchy. We're not better than anybody because we were born somewhere else. I don't believe we are, at least.
All right.
And I think that energy sometimes gets brought in. I had to check myself a lot of times because it's kind of imposed upon you. And I know that diasporas put a bad taste in a lot of Ethiopians who are locals' mouths as well too. Like, actually, I know you're interviewing me, but I'm curious, what do you think of when you think of the term diaspora? What connotation does it hold for you? Like, keep it real.
Yeah. I'm keeping it real. I feel like when I hear the term diaspora, people with privilege, people with maybe opportunities, education, intellect, and things like that. But at the same time, I have the chance to meet with people from the diaspora. So my thought and my experience is not the same. So yeah, I get it. It's nuanced. But if you ask me about my experience or my understanding before my engagement with the Ethiopian Diaspora Trust Fund or my experience in others, I used to think that anyone from the diaspora is someone who can contribute something, who can give me knowledge, who can teach me about something, how to drive a car, or the experience they have getting into a plane and experiencing it, and all kind of luxurious things. So now I have this nuance, layered understanding of everything about diaspora, but what is in the society, what is in the ordinary Ethiopian who's living in not in the city of Ethiopia, but in the periphery, in different part of the country, they have that understanding that diaspora is a person or individuals living in the other part of the world, then having different kind of experiences with opportunity. That's what I think.
Do you ever think that you have something to teach diaspora?
Well, kind of. Yeah.
I've learned a lot from you.
Thank you. All right. I can agree, but I'm not actually insisting that we call it this and that and we come up with some kind of solution about the issue. That's not the issue. I'm not insisting we do that, but I just need to have that understanding of what the term has to do with the Ethiopia we think, or the contribution that these people should bring back to Ethiopia, because we've been taught in the schools and uni, like people of India, or the diaspora of India, the diaspora of Philippines, the diaspora of this and that country, especially even in African countries, Nigeria, South Africa could be. These people contribute a lot to where they're from. So we have that wish, not was a term, but we have that wish was their contribution. So we're thinking about that. I'm specifically talking about how they can contribute rather than talking about the naming of it or the nomenclature that is diaspora.
Do you feel like diaspora have a responsibility to give back?
Absolutely. Yeah. Or else, what is the other option the diaspora has?
It's not okay. I wouldn't say it's an obligation.
Mm-hmm.
I feel it as a responsibility, but I can't impose that upon everybody, right? But it's a rewarding thing. What a privilege to have it. What a privilege to be part of this legacy. But the thing is, if you don't know the legacy, you don't understand the privilege, and you don't want to give back. And that's, I think, why I'm going from country to country screaming about these finalists, or talking about Ethiopia, or talking about my experiences here, and the powerful the void in a lot of ways that has been filled from spending time here. And again, it's not all roses. Yeah. Every country has their challenges. I mean, the US has plenty of challenges. I'm American. It has plenty of challenges, and I can still love America, you know? Just like you can still love Ethiopia, even if there are plenty of challenges here as well, too. There's also lots of opportunity. There's also lots of hope. And I refuse to let anyone take it away from me again. I allowed narratives. I allowed frustrations that maybe, you know, our parents' generations are feeling, and they have every right to feel how they feel, you know? It's a complex journey that they're on as well, too. Sure. But I am choosing to say, okay, this is my responsibility. I'm choosing to say, okay, there's something here, and I think it's worthwhile for me to connect. I don't know what it's going to look like. Yeah, I feel like I'm coming to the place where I'm going to be based here at some point. I don't know what that's going to look like or how, and it's exciting. And again, 2 years ago, I never would have thought that. I'm like, yeah, I'm going to live in LA for the rest of my life. Or, you know, like you know, you kind of, at least for me, my experience of being in America was, this mosquito's trying to get airtime.
It's not
trying to get airtime. Yeah, you're still in my spotlight right now. Yeah, you know, you kind of feel like me growing up in the U.S. I felt like the world started in LA and ended in New York. You know, you just kind of, until I started leaving the country more. And you know, what is it, like 40% of the population has a passport? That might be, I don't know if that's accurate. All right. But it's still, it's a significant amount of the population that does not have a passport. You know, so like people aren't going out. They don't think that there's much more to the world. So yeah, when it comes to diaspora, do we have a responsibility? I believe so, but I can't impose it on everyone. Yeah. It has been a privilege and an honor to be able to work in the work that I've been doing for the past few years. I don't know what that work's going to evolve into. I hope we can continue. I hope I can find a way to tell more stories. I hope I can find a way to be a part of spreading more hope for the country, or just even finding engaging and interesting ways to teach about the legacy. Okay, I probably should have done more research on this before talking about it on here, but there's a game, there's a phone game. There's a content creator, I think Kanessa Muluna is her name. She's from Dubai. And she has a game for the phone. I don't remember what stage it's in right now, but all I know is it got me excited, just the thought of, there's a game about the Battle of Ottawa. right? How cool is that? What an interesting way, because I'll tell you something. My parents, it wasn't like they didn't tell us about Ethiopia. They didn't tell us about the legacy, but it goes in one ear and out the other, right? Just like in American history class, it goes in one ear and out the other. The reason you remember it is because there's TV shows, there's games, there's board games, there's activities, there's interactive experiences, all of these things that tell you about American history. And we're still young and developing in that. So more like, I think games. I think there's a comic book. There's a guy who does comic books as well too, like graphic novels about Ethiopia. Man, I feel so bad that I don't remember the name. Is it Edan Comics? Something? Oh, I'm sorry that I'm not remembering, but it's cool. I don't know. I'll find it. Maybe we can link it or something.
Is it about the Battle of Adwa or something related to that?
I just know it's they feature like I think Ethiopian or African characters.
All right.
So like we're seeing like, again, even in fictional storytelling, it's powerful for them to have this sort of imagery or this sort of messaging. And we got to do it in engaging ways, through games, through TV shows, through series, through songs. How are we using art to push our narrative as well too? Not just our parents telling us, lecturing us about something, right? You know how kids are.
Sure.
You don't really absorb it very well too.
Yeah.
So you want to find the most effective and engaging ways to tell these stories. I'm trying to find an authentic way of telling the stories of these finalists from GRV, which that's my job, right? I'm here doing marketing for Ethiopian Diaspora Trust Fund and strategy for it as well too. But it also gets me excited. I mean, content creation is a beautiful opportunity. I've explored that as well too on my platform of like, how can I tell stories with my content that gets people excited about this country and gets people interested in coming? I've had a lot of friends who aren't Ethiopian reach out to me and be like, can we come with you? And I was like, wait, am I going to start organizing tours? Am I going to do retreats here? Like, I don't know what it's going to be. I am open to suggestions also. Like if anybody has any, like, hey, this would be really great. Let's partner on this. Like, I'd love to hear it because I found a new passion, you know? And for so long, I think my passion was want to be an actor, you know? And I think now it's kind of shifting into like, I can be an actor. I can be a storyteller. I can these things, but how can I do that in a way that uplifts and elevates Ethiopia? We're transitioning right now. We're going through a huge transition, and I feel like I personally am too. So there's this connection that I have with Ethiopians, like Ethiopia and I, simultaneously going on this journey together, and it's bonding us in a really beautiful way.
Amazing. Talking about narratives and storytelling and content creation, I sometimes think that if Ethiopia were this rich country, equipped with technology and all kind of new innovations, I think that the narrative about Ethiopia or the narrative about Africa would change. Is that foolish of me to think like that? Because
no, okay, here's what I will say. Sometimes the narrative has to precede the actual experience because the narrative is what allows the experience to come through, right? You have to see something first in order to believe it is possible. And I think that, again, we've got to start showing, even if it's a very small group or subsect of inspiration and hope of people doing innovative and cool things, we've got to spotlight it. Because remember I said this earlier, what you focus on expands. If we focus on the advancement of Ethiopia, if we focus on the ways in which we're growing, the ways in which we're being resilient, the ways in which we are creatively solving problems here, we will start to associate ourselves as well too. I think our biggest issue is that we sell ourselves short. Culturally, we do as well too, right? And humility is a beautiful virtue. And I think that there's a balance of being able to hold both humility and the realities and the truths and hold them together. Be able to own the successes and the powerful legacy and narratives of the stories that are truthful here, and also still be humble and grateful for it as well. I think what's happening is this side is very, very heavy. We have such what you fear becoming can sometimes control you. If you're so afraid of becoming arrogant or being visible or being seen in this sort of way, it's like we're so afraid of being the pompous, the arrogant, the sort of entitled that we can sometimes swing so far to the other direction of being disenfranchised, of feeling undeserving or unworthy. And that's really what I want to combat. I think there's a way of feeling, there's a way of being honest about your achievements, being proud of your successes without being a monster, you know? And I think that's something that we need to do. I think we have to start doing it, because this humility is tricking all of us. It's fooling all of us into believing that we're less than. It's fooling diaspora into thinking that there's not much going on here. It's fooling Ethiopians locally into thinking that, well, we can't really achieve that much. Part of the reason why we gave so much, the GRV Summit gave so much money and invested that much, an unprecedented amount, was to shock the system, you know, to kind of fight back against you can't do this. You can't hold that. You can't absorb that. You know, like we have to, what position do we play? Again, the role I think we can play as diaspora is believing in each other. No one else is going to believe in Ethiopia if we don't believe in Ethiopia. No one else is going to believe in Ethiopians if we ourselves don't believe in us. This is a thing that I learned in casting. And I think it's applicable. Like as an actor, we always learn this, is like, if you walk into an audition and you don't believe that you can take that role, and you are asking a group of qualified strangers to help you believe that you deserve this thing, it's like, imagine how insane that is. Your job is to come in that space worthy and knowing that you're capable, and to give it your all. You know, and it's up to them to decide, is this what we want or not, right? And then even if you don't get it, you're not supposed to let your ego crumble. You're supposed to say, thank you for that opportunity. I trust and believe that what's meant for me will find me. Like I'm capable of it. So it's the same thing as like what we do here. It's like, if you don't believe in yourself, how do you expect someone else to do it? You're giving them the additional job of having to convince you that you're good enough as well. Who wants to take on that labor? No one, right? So there's a hand-holding that I think can happen here.
All right. Amazing. I'm learning a lot about that experience, because I can only tell from the lens of an Ethiopian living in Ethiopia, but having this experience of going to different countries just for a month or two, study and do things. I know why you were laughing, because I don't even experience the cultures in different countries. So that's a bit awkward for me. So I can understand the whole thing, but this is a new insight that I'm getting, understanding the whole thing from your angle, an Ethiopian angle, who has this experience of going to these different countries and come back to Ethiopia and live the same life. I just want to know your experience of being a diaspora. Let's use the term for the time being, and we'll change it with community, Ethiopian community.
A member of the Ethiopian community, the global Ethiopian community.
Yeah, we can do that. So what is, I just want to know about the experience, the real experience of living in that country, for example, in the US, and being that person who's living in the US in the midst of all white people, black people, people coming from Asia, and being an Ethiopian in that setting. How does it feel?
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
There is a collective experience of what it's like to be American.
Yeah.
In America, right? Because technically, there is no like singular face of America, even though we kind of give America a face. Like we think Americans are like white typically. But Americans can look like anything, right? I'm an American. You're looking at American. I'm also equally Ethiopian, right? And sometimes people get confused. They think that like one of my parents is like American or something. No, both my parents are from Ethiopia, born here. I'm fully Ethiopian, but I was born in America, and both my parents were citizens when I was born. Makes me citizen, right? So I'm an American. There's not a specific face of it. And so that there's like this American identity that we carry, which is like these collective experiences that you have of being American. I also think there's a lot of experiences that you have with other first gens. Now, some people use the term first gen to describe someone who's immigrated. I always thought it was first generation born in America. So depending on how you define it, I'm either a first gen or a second gen. Very confusing. But a daughter of immigrants, how about that? There's lots of other children of immigrants in America that have a collective experience as well too. So you kind of have this sort of feeling of like, you're this, and then there's a spectrum, right? They're the people who, there's a term of whitewash. They're the people who are so American that they feel like they're abandoning or pushing away their culture, that they're not like fully absorbing it. And then there's the others that are super hyper immersed. And that's the first thing anybody hears about them.
All right.
So I feel like I have vacillated on that spectrum throughout my life. When I moved to LA, I mean, I don't know, my name is Afomia Hailemeskel. Like, there's no hiding that I'm Ethiopian, right? Like, maybe people will look at me in the street and not always know that I'm Ethiopian. Maybe I don't have the typical like Ethiopian features, but I still I didn't feel like I could hide that part of myself. But there were times that I felt like I was more Ethiopian or not, and I didn't want to be like an a la carte Ethiopian. It's very easy to just be Ethiopian on Fasika, somebody's wedding, somebody's Christina, somebody's graduation, you know, like, and you can just be American all the other times. And then that's when your agar lips, you shake the dust off of it in your closet idol, and then you put it on and you're like, okay, I'm Ethiopian today. Idol, like, it very much feels like that sometimes as well too. Right. I think a turning point for me was my sister's wedding. All right. My sister got married in 2018, and I had moved away from my family. So I grew up, I didn't have to try to be Ethiopian. I was a part of a very large diaspora in Dallas. So immersed in the community and then you're at home, every day feels like Ethiopia. So I don't have to prove to anybody that I'm Ethiopian. Yeah. I don't have to take on anything extra. Moving to LA by myself, I didn't have any close friends that were Ethiopian. Even though I called my family, that's the only time I spoke in Amharic, and I noticed myself speaking more and more in English to them on the phone as well too. So my Amharic started to suffer, one. Two, it felt like I was just kind of feeling very distant from my culture because I wasn't surrounded by Abashas anymore. My sister's wedding was like maybe a year and a half after I'd moved, and she married another Abasha as well. So there was it was a very cultural wedding. And the experience of that was like, wow, this is ours. And I think it held a different weight because I had been away from it for a while. When I came back to it, I was like, this is our culture, this is our experience, this is our legacy. You know, and I'll be honest, American weddings don't compare. Ethiopian weddings are the best. I don't know. There's such a fascination with watching Ethiopian weddings. You know how many people, thousands of people have watched my sister's wedding. Wow. It's not even fancy edit. It's just up on YouTube. My younger brother just uploaded it, and it's just there, you know? And thousands of people have seen this. They don't even know her.
We're going to search for that.
We're going to find, yeah, we should link it, man. It's fantastic. Right. But yeah, like there's this, and I understand why, because it's so amazing. And I was like, I don't want to lose this. Yeah. I don't want to lose this. So then at the time I was teaching second grade. So I started to like bring some of my stuff into the classroom for the kids. Wow. And I had a student, the most brilliant girl. Her name was Hilme. And I was like, what a powerful moment to have a little Ethiopian girl in my class. She even had shuruba just like I did when I was a kid, you know? And I was like, I get to be one of her teachers. How cool is that? And then for, what holiday was it? Yeah. All right. We did iskasta in the class. We got all the little kids to do iskasta together. We were doing it, you know? And like, there's a cultural day that we got to show, you know, the Havanjera and stuff like this. I started finding small ways to start incorporating my culture into my community a bit more, taking friends to the Ethiopian restaurants. And they always loved it, you know? I started working for a YouTube channel. I made a sketch about...
I was about to ask you the journey of content creation in that as well. So
yeah. You know what? When I started making content for that channel, I started getting DMs from Ethiopians being like, when are you going to do an episode about being Ethiopian? Like, wow. And I was like, okay, we have to do it. And it was really fun, you know, it was cool. Yeah. It was like, and of course it's comedy, it's silly, you know, but it was like a fun way of, again, interjecting a bit of our pieces.
I have a disagreement about the whole thing because we talk about it and you don't want to bring it up, but I love the whole thing because we don't have people representing, depicting Ethiopian culture in that way, in that setting. like in the US and big channel or?
Okay, here's my thoughts. While I celebrate it, I feel like it was, thrown together really quickly. It was in a framework I was operating into the framework of that channel, right?
Yeah.
Not if I was telling the story of Ethiopia, I would want to do it in a different way.
Yeah.
We're doing it in that convention, right?
Sure.
And so I think for what it was great. And it did really well and got lots of feedback from it.
Yeah.
Positive feedback, surprisingly. Yeah. And you know what? Like a lot of that was my actual experience of dating men who weren't Ethiopian and getting to share my culture with people, my friends, as well too. I even started hosting Ethiopian dinners, which, pushed me to start making and then afterwards we'd have like dance parties and I'd be like, all right, we're doing Eskusta, we're doing Tigranya, we're doing Walaita, we're doing Guraganya, we're doing everything, like Oromanya, if you can, stretch your neck, here we go before.
Yeah.
And it's so exciting to be able to share. I want to share the things I'm excited about with my culture. Like I loved those things about it. And it's a pleasure and a joy to be able to share it in that way. And it's so cool. Sometimes when you are showing it to people who've never seen it before, it kind of reminds you how special it is as well too. So what's your experience as being a diaspora? To bring it back?
Sure.
The experience of being diaspora is there's a certain amount of it is about navigating this identity crisis you can experience in your coming of age years, sure. Right? It's complicated because in the US, you're also navigating being Black, which our parents don't feel. But I think maybe if you're born in America and you have this journey of, Ethiopians are Black in the eyes of white people, and while the Black American experience might be different from the Ethiopian experience, there's a lot of crossover. I feel Black, and I know not everybody claims that term. I don't feel like I should tell every Abasha or Ethiopian to claim it or not, or whatever. I'm just saying my own experience is that. So there's lots of, being a diaspora is challenging in that way sometimes of trying to figure out where you fall. The other side of it that's really fun as well too is the joy of being able to share your culture with people who probably would never have heard of it before. There's so many people who've never met another Ethiopian. Like I'm the only Ethiopian in their life, and when they talk about me and my culture, they do it in such a cool way. Like, oh, when we go to Afomia's house, it's like her mom is like royalty, Like one of my friends bowed to my mother when he met her because he was so overwhelmed by like the, like Yenya culture. And he's like, he just bowed, like, it's beautiful, And so I think it's great. We have to acknowledge that there's something so regal, there's something so rich about our culture that when witnessed with fresh eyes, they're like, wow. And so, the spectrum of it is so much. It can be like, there's the challenges of here, but there's also the joy and the privilege of being able to share it and share your love with people in that way. And I want to find more ways to do that, to continually do that.
Okay, I'm not done with the content creation part.
Oh, sure. Let's get into it.
It's really huge and the impact is really big because we don't have so many people that are doing this kind of things. And the narrative, the storytelling part of it, and everything about it is amazing. But I sometimes think Africa also deserves this kind of narrative. I mean, the sons and daughters of Africa live in different part of the world in the US and big cities around the world. But giving back sometimes shouldn't be only about investing, about sending money, remittances, or things of that nature. But the storytelling part of it, telling about Africa, really, that's what I want to know. What do you feel about that? The importance of it, the value that it can create, and things of that nature.
I think it comes down to, not to plug myself or put opportunities out there, but I think it comes down to partnerships. And that's something that I'm really interested in growing. Like what a dream it would be to like partner with Ethiopian Airlines to tell the Ethiopian story, right? Or anyone else who is really deeply invested in, because I was in a conversation with someone, I can't remember who, but they're talking about how Emirates built Dubai to a certain extent in a lot of ways. They built the hype around Dubai, built the excitement around Dubai. And I wonder as well too, like we have this historic, like, we should be very proud of Ethiopian Airlines and the legacy that it has. I think I had growing up, and I had this in my college dorm, a vintage Ethiopian Airlines calendar. and it had like birds, and it was really cool. It's like one of them was birds, and the other one was like, I think, hairstyles, Ethiopian like women's hairstyles or something. I might be mixing up two things, but yeah, like the vintage Ethiopian Airlines content is so beautiful and so powerful. Like we've got, what is it? We're going on 80 years for Ethiopian Airlines. It's incredible, right? It's amazing. And no, I mean, number one on the continent, right? And I think it deserves like, that's what I'm saying. It's like, we've got to start competing globally. And in order to do that, like, yes, I think all of Africa deserves better storytelling. And you're seeing certain markets really do it well. Like Nigeria is really like coming strong with their, not only with their movies, but with their music. I do you know if this is true? I heard recently that someone said that like the nation itself invested heavily into Afrobeats. And that's why it grew. I did. Let's fact check that. Wow. But somebody told me recently like there was a significant amount of investment that the nation did for years to grow. And now the whole world loves Afrobeats. The whole world is obsessed with Afrobeats. There was an Afrobeats festival in Sacramento that I went to, which is like very random, if I'm being honest. I don't think Sacramento has ever seen that many Black people in its history. But when I tell you, it's like, that's what I think it takes, is that sort of state branding. It's that sort of partnership. And I think diaspora can play a role as well too. Yeah. I'm not saying that no one else is doing it. I'm just saying there's room for more of us to be doing it. And I would love to be doing it. I would love to partner with people to do it more. I think look at Game of Thrones and shows like that, right? Ethiopia's history alone is enough to fill up 6 seasons of a really cool show. I'm telling you right now, there's so many things we could do. And I think we deserve to do. It's just a matter of there being an appetite for it. And I believe that there is. It just takes a specific amount of investment, but why not? Why don't we deserve that investment? Look at the growth that we're seeing in this country. It's like, why do other countries' stories deserve to be told and ours not? We got a lot of really good ones. Like Ottawa in itself, I don't know that a lot of diaspora really know the story. If you asked me to retell it in detail, I don't think I could. Can you?
I can try.
Yeah?
Yeah.
If I asked you, what is the story of Ottawa? What would you say?
A lot of things. But for me, it's the story of pride. The story of love. Ownership for the country. Ownership of what do we have in Ethiopia? Our thing. I mean, I go to different countries, and my friends from Ethiopia, from Addis, we go to different countries. And the reason we hold our heads high up in there is because of Adwa. We have that pride intact. I'm not saying that we feel entitled or we feel arrogant about it, but there is something that tells you deep inside that your ancestors fought for you to stand upright and do the right thing. You don't have to bow down to anyone. So it's about pride. It's about ownership of our own stories. It's about love of a country.
Think about when the movie Black Panther came out, how revolutionary that was for Black people, Africans all over the world. That's a fictional story. Imagine how impactful this could be. This could be revolutionary in a lot of ways, right? And it takes one film. It takes one movie. It takes one that does it well, right? And you can say, sure, okay, maybe the market doesn't have that amount of money for graphics or for what we would need. What if we made it animated? That's never stopped anything from being like, you could do that. We have AI now, honestly. Yeah. So I think there's lots of creative ways to do it. I think whether we do like an animated series, whether we do, it's just, I know it needs to be done. And I'm sure there are people working on things. I just don't know about it yet. So tell me, I want to know. For sure. I would love to be a part of it in any way, even if it's just about advocating for it, even if it's just about sharing about how powerful these messages are and how necessary they are. They are necessary.
Absolutely.
because once you know what you're a part of, you can tap into that pride. You can tap into that honor. You can tap into that privilege. We gotta give people something. It's not even like we're fabricating it, right?
Yeah.
It's the truth. We're tapping back into the truth because we're not seeing the story of Ottawa. We're seeing the story of famine. We're seeing a story of scarcity. We're seeing a story of like victimhood.
Yeah.
And we were champions in a lot of ways. And that deserves to be told too, I think.
Do you really believe that people has what it takes to actually contribute towards making this kind of stories or making them seen by other people? It could be making a movie about Adwa, people with resources, money, and a lot of things.
That's just one story too. We have so many other ones. We're focusing on Ottawa because Ottawa is like an impactful one, maybe our biggest one. Like,
Yeah.
but we have so many others too as well. Do I feel like we have the resources to do it? Yeah. Why don't we? Why not? It doesn't have to be. It can start with a play for, you know what I mean? For like,
I'm not saying that we don't have the money or the resources, but I don't think the willingness is there as well. Because as an Ethiopian, I feel like because there is a mentality of a scarcity and within the communities, within people, we think of owning properties or we think of owning cars and things like that, than actually making an impact through producing a movie about a culture, producing a movie about something glorifying Ethiopia. For example, the first time I went to Lalibela, I saw Lalibela and everything around it. This place is majestic. It is really huge. I don't remember watching any kind of documentary or movies. Maybe I watched a documentary done by National Geography. Other than that, I didn't see anything about it. So we have this influential individuals, big people around the world, but really making the commitment to give an amount to contribute towards making that movie, that story. I don't believe we have what it takes to do that.
The great news is that it doesn't take a ton of people. It doesn't take 1,000 people. It just takes a small group of people willing to do it. You know, a small group of people willing to do it. And it takes, because the impact that one narrative can have, like we've seen how much impact one movie can have on a group. We've seen how much impact a singular song can have on a community, right?
Yeah.
And I think it's about. You said you don't believe that we have it. I think I'm gonna disagree with you. I think I have to believe that we have it. I don't know how long it's gonna take, but I feel like it's coming soon. Especially by voicing it, I feel like maybe somebody else is, and just because I've already told you some examples of ways that people are already beginning to. We have to, and we will. That's how I feel. I feel like
All right.
we will.
I mean, we should.
We should, but we will. We will. We will. We will. I know we will. We will. I wish I could say I will. I might. I could. I you know, who knows? Maybe this will spark somebody's interest. Maybe your platform's getting pretty popular. Who knows?
Really? Okay.
Yeah, it is. Somebody might.
Blushing.
We might
All
both.
right.
We might both get pulled into this.
All right.
Would you be a narrator?
For free.
Yeah.
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 For free. Just like for free.
Yo,
Anytime,
you heard
anything.
that.
Yeah. You can hold me to that. Not only me, Jordan is here. Him too. I can talk for him. Yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely. So.
And with his English, I think.
Yeah. So. I like some of the points that we mentioned. You've been talking about all these things, and the power of storytelling is the other thing we need to address, we need to talk about. But let me tell you about my experience.
Please.
So I need you to tell me about this because it's about the power of storytelling. You know, growing up, my friend and myself, we used to go to the movie houses, these small houses where around 50 or 100 people came in, and we sit and watch Bruce Lee fight and all kind of movies. So there was a movie that I don't know if the title is correct, Love and Basketball. We could talk about a different movie. I don't know if that is appropriate to talk about right now. But I used to think like a black guy in the U.S., a black girl in the U.S., they can do all kind of things. So the guy has this and that. Oh, amazing! If I go to the U.S., I get to be him. And there is also Love Don't Cost a Thing, a movie title. I used to think like I can be like that guy.
Sure.
I could drive a car like that, all kind of things. So when you talked about the power of storytelling, that is the impression I have of America. That is the impression I have of the possibilities in the West. Tell me about this power of storytelling.
So when The Cosby Show came out,
all right,
it was specifically done. I know Cosby is a polarizing figure, unfortunately, but why the show was made was specifically to empower Black families. Mm-hmm. They even hired a psychologist to make sure that the narratives or any of the depictions that they were showing were not going to, oppress Black people further. Right? Because there's such a limited, even Black people in America experience the same thing we're talking about right now, which is limited representation that creates a self-fulfilling prophecy. I'm not worthy of this, so this is what I will achieve. We're criminals, we're this, we're that. That's all you see. So that's what you become, right? In the same way of like, if you constantly see images of Ethiopia being scarce and scarcity here, you feel like your opinion of the nation, your opinion of what's possible here is diminished significantly. So with The Cosby Show, it was revolutionary because both of the parents were working professionals that had gone to college and even hired. I think one was a lawyer and one was a doctor. And they were a beautiful, loving family, and it was really you'd never seen Black excellence depicted in that way before, and it was transformational. So much so that people had a really hard time with those allegations with Bill Cosby later because of the impact that he had on them, right? Because what he made them feel like Black people were able to achieve and accomplish, right? So I'd say even then we all know the power of storytelling. Mm-hmm. That's why do you think America has so much amazing marketing? They know the power of storytelling. It's not just America. It's like Egypt. We were talking about all these other places where people are fascinated with the country and the land, and they don't have that identity. It's because of the marketing around those places. So it's not just for the people who experience that country. It's for everybody else as well too, right? The ways that people romanticize other countries is because of the stories that they know about it. There should be a fascination around Ethiopia. We are the only African nation not to be colonized. And in that experience, there's something really powerful and resilient there. And it deserves to be celebrated. Even for that fact alone, there should be more fascination around Ethiopia. Right? Mm-hmm. And so I think when you say what's the power of stories, you saw Sinai Lathan, who was it? Is it Mekhi Phifer? Who is it in Love and Basketball? I don't remember. You saw those two in Love and Basketball. You're like, Black people in America can do anything. What are we going to show our kids about Ethiopia? Now, the trouble is it's getting diluted. Mm-hmm. Our parents were born and raised in Ethiopia, so they had this experience and they were sharing it with us, right? Now we're sharing a diluted version of their experience to our kids and hoping our kids will still feel connected to Ethiopia. Mm-hmm. It will be a miracle if they speak Amharic. Mm-hmm. It's miraculous that I speak as much Amharic as I do. Mm-hmm. So there's this, we got to get them excited about being Ethiopian. We have to get them excited about the culture. And how do you do that? Through marketing, through storytelling. It's not a luxury, it's imperative, is what I'm saying. We're losing it. Otherwise, we're losing we have so many Ethiopians that don't live in Ethiopia. We can't afford to lose all of them to whatever country they live in now. You know, we can't afford. I saw when I was in France just now, I met Ethiopians that are only speak French and don't speak Amharic, you know, because they were born there. And the same thing about in America. You'll see Ethiopians there that don't speak Amharic or don't know much about their culture, but they're Ethiopian, you know? And it's like, eventually this will become filtered out, and then we just lose it. I don't think that's necessary. I think you can still carry this with you. I think you can still pass it on. And the only way we'll do that is by exciting them, is by engaging them. It's not a time to be overly humble anymore. It's a time to ጊዜው ለመሰብሰብ ነው አይደል? Like we need to unite again. We need to come together, you know? And it's not about how Ethiopian you are. You can have a drop of Ethiopian blood in you, you know, like I think you're Ethiopian. You know, some of the most interesting experiences to me when they're diaspora who are mixed, you know, or adopted. The way that they see Ethiopia through this fresh eyes and this excitement. One of my cousins, you know, he's half Ethiopian, and he was raised with one side of his family, and then he got to know us later on in his life, and the excitement and belonging that he felt once he came into this culture. And he got to come to Ethiopia for the first time this past year, and it was so beautiful to witness it with it. Like, you know, this reminder, this feeling of like, wow, yes, we do have this great thing, and it's like, I think we all deserve to experience it and celebrate it. If you are lucky enough to have this experience, to have a drop of Ethiopian blood in you, why don't you get to celebrate it? We got to bring them in. We have to. I feel like I'm on a soapbox here talking about this. I'm sorry, but I this is my belief. I do feel like we got to get together. I feel like we got to tell our stories in whatever medium and means that we have, right? Even if it's people are organizing like Ethiopian youth soccer activities or games for them to just be around each other, to experience it together, right? To talk. There is something so powerful about I have my friends, and then I have my Ethiopian family. Like, they're not technically blood related, right? But they're the people whose parents were also in your mahaber. They're the people who went to your church as well, or your mosque or whatever. The relationship that I have with those people is different from even my best friends, because that's like family. So when you allow Ethiopian children to be around each other, they form this different type of bond. It's special, because who do you call when you have lakso? Yeah? Who do you call? Who's your mise in your weddings? Right? Who are the people that they understand what you're going through and the things that you can't explain to others? That is a powerful bond. So it's like, I think that's another way of narrative sharing too, is by connecting them to each other. So what role do narratives play? A powerful one. What role do we have to share those narratives? A big role. I believe that we have a big responsibility. And I think that our generation, millennials, we got to start thinking about how we're going to pass it on. What's our legacy going to be? And that's why I think I'm getting this excitement and whatever, you know, because I'm feeling like, all right, this is my time to figure out how I'm going to share what being Ethiopian is. Do I get to use my platform to do that? Am I sharing it? Like, how do I do it in a small scale with my internal community? How I do it larger with my online community? Yeah.
All right. Okay. Afomia, do you ever feel like, what if I had only one experience of being an American, or just an experience of being an Ethiopian? Do you feel like that?
I think about it all the time. I think about how lucky I am to be Ethiopian. And I don't want to let myself forget that. I'm so blessed. What a blessing, you know? And people love Ethiopians. Everywhere you go, they're like, wow, you're Ethiopian? Man, I felt like royalty when I went to Jamaica.
Oh.
But like, Ethiopians, we're celebrated in a lot of ways. We've got a lot of, it's a privilege to have this identity. Even in being in America and being Ethiopian, you recognize how privileged you are as a Black person to know where you come from and to have a culture that you can claim as your own, I don't take that for granted. So I often think about what it would be like to be in their shoes or to be in other experiences. Like what would I be if I wasn't Ethiopian? What would it feel like? It's so weird to think about. It's less weird to think about what if I grew up in Ethiopia instead? What if I was born here instead? I know so much of my mindset and my experience is shaped by the fact that I was born and raised in America. I think I would have had maybe more Yulungta. I did. I think I would maybe have a lot of the same hangups that people have here, but I also feel like I'm meant to be this. I feel like I was meant to. What a powerful and unique experience to be the first of your entire lineage to be born outside of Ethiopian soil. And what a privilege to come back to it. Right? So I think maybe, I could have been a very different person if I was an Ethiopian born in Ethiopia, but I wasn't meant to be. I was meant to go on this journey. Because when you're an Ethiopian born in Ethiopia, the chances of you sharing your narrative is a little bit less because everybody's Ethiopian. Mm-hmm. You don't have to tell other Ethiopians about Ethiopia. They know, they're here, And maybe as diaspora, it's our job to, in the same way that I told you my cousin who just found out what it is to be Ethiopian, found it later in his life, inspired us. Maybe as diaspora, we can kind of re-inspire Ethiopians about how lucky they are to have this identity as well too. We can kind of remind them that, I don't know if I told you this, my first week here, last time I came back this time or earlier last year, I remember the feeling of waking up every day and everyone being Ethiopian was so beautiful and overwhelming. And I was driving in the car one day and I was just looking out and seeing all these people. And so I remember looking at the women being like, they're so beautiful. They're so beautiful. We're so beautiful. Just the random people in the street, the men you see working in the street, anybody you see, it's just, everyone's beautiful. I started crying. And it's you guys are used to it, you're used to everybody being konjo. That's why I think they say, that's why Abisha men are so picky, they say, because they have such, they see beauty every day, I don't. So it's I do think about that experience. And again, like I said, I believe I was meant to straddle all of these things. I was meant to have these experiences. I was born with this level of enthusiasm and wonder and joy and excitement because I'm meant to excite other people as well too. Mm-hmm. Sure, maybe it can be overwhelming or annoying for some people, but I've heard from others, I've been like, it's nice to be in your energy and your excitement and your joy about it because it reminds me of what it is. If I can do that for anyone, it feels like an honor.
I consider you to be a really exciting person, joyful. It's such a pleasure to work and to have you around. Do you ever feel like there is something that you need to go and do to be more fulfilled?
What a deep question. Also, thank you. I think being called a joyful person is one of the best compliments.
Thank you.
I really appreciate that. I try to be as joyous as I can. I try to capture as much joy as I can. Do I feel like there's anything I need to do to feel more fulfilled? I might have to think on that one. Do you have anything that you feel like you need to do to be more fulfilled? I feel like we've talked about this before.
Absolutely, but I have a lot of other things that I'm going for. At this point in time, some things.
Are you going to tell us?
Yeah. I just want to go outside Ethiopia and start enjoying the places that I'm visiting, but I don't have that. As soon as I get to a place, I think about coming back to Ethiopia. I don't really appreciate that side of me, so that's not a good thing. I think I need to have more conversation with my parents, with my siblings. We're not having that a lot, but we're talking about a genuine one, a deep conversation. We don't have that, so I think I have to do that a lot. I think I have to call my mom a lot. I don't really think that I'm calling her and talking to her about my troubles, my joy, my excitement in life. it's just become sometimes about sending money and making her feel valued because you're sending money. I don't think that is a proper way to conduct yourself or to have that relationship, meaningful relationship with your family. So yeah, I have these things.
I love what you said about like parents are super important. I think that's one thing I would like to urge. I think from a diaspora stance, urging diaspora to talk to their parents more, because we have a lot of generational gaps and misunderstandings because of the cultural differences that we experienced growing up in a different environment than our parents. But like I have a lot of regrets around not asking or recording my dad's stories or documenting my dad's stories more before he passed. And with my mom, like, I love my mom. I love my mom so much. She's amazing. And I know what you mean about having deep conversations with her. I have really pushed to the point where my mom says sometimes you think too much. But she'll listen to me, which I think I'm really grateful for. And even like calling your mom more, I would highly recommend. I that's one of my resolutions, is trying to call my mom more as well too. I should. She would appreciate it. I know she would. I think sometimes I feel like the relationship I have with calling my mom is similar to the relationship I had with coming back to Ethiopia. And let me explain. I was afraid to come back to Ethiopia. That's why I stayed away for 11 years, because I didn't think I was accomplished enough to do it. Right? I felt like I didn't deserve to come back. And sometimes I do that with my mom too. I feel like I don't call my mom as much because I'm like, oh, I haven't done enough. I can't take care of her fully in the way that I would like to. And you want to spoil your moms because, I mean, like, Ethiopian moms are beautiful. And Ethiopian moms' prayers, like, any minoro b'nate tzalot no. Like, honestly, it's such a powerful thing. I can call my mom and be like, Mommy, can you pray for me for this?
Wow.
And I feel like hers are the most powerful. I don't know. Like, like when you pray, your mom prays for you on your behalf. It's like so powerful for you. Not to say that you can't pray yourself. I just mean, like, it's such, what a luxury to be able to have someone who does that, who loves you that much. Sometimes when I'm sleeping in my mom's place, like, and I'm sleeping with her, I wake up and then she's putting tzabal on me. Sometimes it's scary because you're like waking up from your sleep. I'm like, wow, for someone to love you that much, what a love you can't even understand, you know? So calling your mom, I think, is healing for not just them, but you as well too. And I do think it's worth trying to understand where our parents are coming from. Not expecting them to be this version of themselves that, like, we find as an ideal parent, but to just kind of meet them where they're at. I feel like my mom is learning to meet me where I'm at. I think there's lots of ways that I confuse her. I'm not what she expects in a lot of ways, but I know she loves me, and I know that she tries. So I think I do feel like you're a very deep person. So what you said about feeling fulfilled by the conversations, the depth of conversations you can have with your family, I think it's a powerful one. Have you had any feedback from your family on the podcast at all?
I don't think they even care about it. Like, I mean, I have to be really honest about it. I mean, my siblings are really excited that I'm doing this. My brothers and sisters, but my mom, she is used to watching me coming on TV and doing all this kind of things, and she has this feeling that I can do things.
Very proud of you.
Kind of like that.
I think I have an answer for the fulfillment question.
All right.
I have this feeling that I'm getting ready to do something. And I felt this way for a long time, like maybe the last 5 years, that I'm going to do something big. And I don't know what it is yet. And I think that I'm preparing for it. And I always thought it was like, oh, I'm going to land some big role or something. That's why I moved to LA or whatever. So this feeling of fulfillment feels like I'm grateful for my life. I'm grateful for the things that I've accomplished. And I'm humbly trying to learn more and trying to push myself more. And, I throw myself into environments of a lot of discomfort. I'll go somewhere where I don't know a single person and try to, to learn myself a bit more as well too, to kind of do things that scare me a bit in a way to prove to myself that I'm stronger than I might think, and to push myself a bit. I can be a creature of convenience sometimes. And I think it's really hard because when you have Ethiopian family, they take care of you very well, right? And we get used to comfort. So sometimes I think I have like an addiction almost sometimes to discomfort. To be like, okay, it's tough, and I'm going to put myself through it, and I'm going to see. And what you see on Instagram or social media might seem like, oh, everything's a breeze, but like internally, I'm freaking out. Like I'm having a really hard time half the time. Wow. But I'm grateful for it because I'm all the more stronger. So the fulfillment, I think, is coming. But there's something that I feel like is coming, and I'm trying to prepare myself for it. Again, that's where the discomfort is coming from. And I don't know what it is, honestly. I wish, if I'm telling you the truth, I'm not sure exactly what it is. But I feel like I'm meant to do something, and I think my only job is to show up every day, open and willing to learn, open and willing to hear, open and willing to listen, and then it will reveal itself to me eventually. I'm getting closer though.
Wow.
I'm starting to feel like it has more to do with Ethiopia than it did before. But so now then, do you feel like you have any predictions for me? Based on your knowledge of me or whatever? Do you think I'm going to end up in Ethiopia?
I mean, that's a wish we have. So for you to be in Ethiopia, to have your comfort in here. But I always feel like having that experience in the US, going to places, big places, and meeting people. And I think it's a bit of a confining environment for you to be in here. So I'm worried. I'm always questioning whether or not you are having your comfort in Ethiopia. But I mean, I see you being happy. I see you doing all kind of things. But I question whether or not you're having that experience that you've been having in the US the same way you've been having it in other part of the world, in France or different places. I want you to feel that happiness, that excitement, but I don't think you could get it here, because experiencing the top and coming here, really navigating the whole system, the whole thing, and I don't believe that you have that excitement.
I think it's worth trying to find it here. That's what I'll say. I think I'm, like I said in the very beginning, I'm a people person.
Yeah.
And everywhere I go, I develop a community really quickly. I think in Ethiopia, it was a little bit more challenging because of my age demographic and what typically other women in my age demographic would be, married with children. And I think finding community was a little bit challenging because I didn't have those things as well. And so I felt maybe like I didn't belong. Or also, I think there's a level of judgment that we fear around other Ethiopians too that keeps us guarded. And so I'm a pretty open person, but I felt the guardedness of others around me, and it threw me off, I'd say. It doesn't mean that I haven't found community here. I haven't found amazing people here. I have. So I think it's about being able to navigate it. I will say Ethiopia is the most challenging place I've ever tried to navigate building community. It doesn't mean that it's not worthwhile or it's not possible. And I think it's changing as well too. I think there's more third spaces that are being developed. There's more experiences that are being developed. It's a little challenging as somebody who doesn't drink as well, when I feel like there's still some room for the after work activities to expand. Right now, it feels like typically it's just bars that we have as recreational activities. But I think that there's room for those to expand as well too. And as those do, I think I won't become such an outlier anymore in that way. There's going to be tons of more spaces that I can occupy and more things I can do. But in the meantime, I have a lot of family as well too. So I guess you're right. Maybe it doesn't seem as easy as maybe I can't just pop into a salsa class. Well, actually, we can, right? There's salsa classes here, aren't there? I just haven't gone to them.
A lot of them.
Aren't they? Yeah.
Everywhere.
There's everywhere. I just need to find them, right?
Yeah.
And so maybe that, again, it comes down to marketing and storytelling.
Yes.
Right? So I think other places maybe do a better job of telling you where they are so you can find them. Here, I've been having a bit more of a tough time. But I've still done a lot of really cool things in Ethiopia. And Yeah.
So where do you find your comfort? Like from being that professional Afomia or the content creator Afomia, the creative one, or this Afomia who is experiencing, navigating, living and having this experience of different communities. I mean, like the serious Afomia who's professional doing all those things, or the fun Afomia who's practicing and creating in the field of creativity and all that.
Do you think they're separated? Do you think they're segmented?
For me, yes.
I try to bring all of my sides to me as much as I can. Even in professional meetings, you see me giggling. Right?
I do,
And,
but it's not the same. For example, when you have that professional meeting, you can laugh, but still there is a purpose to achieve.
I'm only not laughing if I'm scared of the person. Yeah, I'm gonna make it a little bit serious, and I'm like, okay, we got to impress him. No, okay. I like being all those sides. I love being able to. I have a very youthful energy about me, but it's nice to be able to tap into that, like, tap into the passion and the intellectual side as well too. I'm working on being able to bring everything as often as possible. Sometimes it's not appropriate though. You don't have to be 100% of yourself 100% of the time, right? When do I feel the most free? Like right now, I'm sure I don't even want to look at the time. But connecting with people like this, having these conversations, and I think that this conversation has navigated depth. It's not challenging topics as well as really lighthearted and fun ones as well. And this is the type of roller coaster I enjoy. Yeah. So, was the question, when do I feel most like myself? Yeah. I think I'm very lucky in the sense that I always feel like me. I have a hard time trying to escape me. Like, I used to want to be a quiet, mysterious person. I can't. My personality betrays me every time. I'll hype myself up before going into a room and be like, okay, you're not going to say anything. You're going to be mysterious. And then the minute I get in there, I'm like cracking jokes, but I'm like, I can't. Yeah. So I feel like my personality betrays me a lot. All right. Okay. But when do you feel most like yourself?
You'll be laughing if I tell you.
Tell me.
When I talk to people, the people that I like.
Do you often talk to people you don't like?
You see, you're putting me on that spot. You have to.
Sorry, it's not my podcast. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
When you talk to people, you feel most like yourself?
I was thinking that it's a challenging question. Yeah, it's amazing.
Yeah, you put me on the spot. Yeah, I'm very trying.
Mostly, what I like doing is having fun with my friends and spending time with my family. So those are the best times. Yeah. Yeah.
What's it like to you being a dad?
Fun.
Yeah?
Yeah, it's a lot of fun.
Do you feel like your identity shifted in that part of your life?
Definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you feel like you bring what sides of yourself do you bring to being a dad?
Afomia is taking over, all right?
No, I'm just curious because I feel like the roles you play and the positions that you play take on like different role, like when your life changes in that way.
Let me tell you about the experience of being a dad. It's really exciting. The only time I become my authentic self is when I meet my kids. I go and there is that excitement I see on their faces and the hugs, the laughter and everything. Oh, that is really brilliant. That's amazing. So that's really big.
I think you got to bring the oldest one on the podcast so that they can see authentic Avram.
No, I am authentic now, but that kind of authenticity is a different kind.
I'm sure.
I feel like I'm like one of the kids around me. Like I do all kind of silly things, rolling, doing all kind of things. That's fun. Yeah, that's really big. So I know you work with young people, and your work actually impacts the young people of the country, Ethiopia. And I believe you have a lot to tell these young people. First of all, do you have hope that the young people of the country would change the country? And second, do you have anything to say to this young demographic of Ethiopia?
I have so much hope.
All right.
So much hope for them. We can't afford not to. We owe it to them to believe in them. We owe it to them to believe in them. I mean, they outnumber us, first of all. There's a lot of them, right? Our median, I tell this to every single person I met ever since I heard that fact for the first time when we were at that Boeing graduation ceremony, remember?
Definitely.
For that program. And I saw that number on the screen for the first time. They said the median age in Ethiopia is 19. And in the US, it's like close to 4. It's like 38, 39 or something. That's insane. 70% of a 125 million population is under the age of 30 with a median age of 19. And of that, 75%, 1 in 4 are employed. They don't deserve that. And they know they don't deserve that. They know, right? I think just from what I've seen, and maybe I'm looking at a group of outliers, right? With these innovators. Maybe I'm looking at a group of outliers here. But from what I've seen, I spent the whole day interviewing the finalists to show their progress of GRV. So those interviews are coming out. You're going to see them. They're really great. But you asking me this on a day like today is really potent because absolutely, I left feeling so inspired. Inspired by their ability to see problems around them, right? To see issues or challenges in their community and be like, you know what? I want to solve that.
Yeah.
Right? There's this one group, Kuri mothers. They were talking about how, another stat I didn't know at all. I think in 2023, it's like 460 Ethiopian children are born in an hour. In an hour. Like, that's insane. And a significant amount of deaths between the ages of 0 and 5 are due to like breast milk and breastfeeding and like malnutrition around that area. So their solution is okay, we're noticing that women are struggling to produce breast milk. And the traditional methods that we have are very beneficial and helpful, but they're not practical once the women return to work. So they're making lactation tea. And these are young women who are like, okay, this is a problem. We're seeing something that's really devastating happening. And instead of waiting for a handout or waiting for some solution to come from a market that is outside of theirs, they're like, we got to do something about it. No, I want to do something about it. We're going to do something about it. And when they started doing this, when they started this process, they didn't know they were going to get funded. A lot of these finalists were shocked that they were selected for the GRV Summit. Right? And even our young innovators, they received $10K each. That's a significant amount of funding for this market. Significant, right? And they've been able to launch. And the exciting thing about it is that since I heard her story this morning, another one of the finalists was bringing up, it's so great to be a part of this accelerator program. We're learning so much from each other and each other's products. I was able to give my cousin who just gave birth this lactation tea and then Hannah, our assistant, was telling us, she's like, yeah, I have a family member who was also struggling with this. I called Yerus, Dr. Yerus, and she talked to the woman and she sent her the tea. So it's like, again, it's like these are communities that are dedicated to solving issues and supporting each other. And these are youth that are doing it. They're not saying, oh, the world is ending. Everything is weird. It's not in our favor. They're like, we're going to push the odds to our favor. We're going to make this, we're going to do it to us. We'll do what we can to make this a better place. So I believe in them. I do. And you know what they don't have is there's something about youth that they've retained still, which is this wonder and this hope and this belief that there's something that they can do, that they can be a part of change.
Mm-hmm.
And I think as you get older, you start to get a bit more cynical. And I really want to nurture that energy in them because they're reigniting it in me. When I first came to Ethiopia right after graduation, I spent 5 months here, and I was working for a nonprofit. I was volunteering for a group called Artists for Charity. And I remember being like, wow, what a beautiful thing. And then I was thinking about the group of children that get kicked out of the orphanage at a certain age because they can't house them anymore. But they're still not old enough to work. They're still not old enough to take care of themselves. Mm-hmm. So it was devastating to me. I was like, oh, I want to find something I can do for them, like create a trade school or something where they can, sell a product or something and be able to pay for their room and board that way and be a self-sustaining model. I remember being so excited about this idea. And then I went away from Ethiopia, got disconnected, never thought about it again. Mm-hmm. And somebody reminded me when I came back to Ethiopia, like, remember when you said you wanted to open a school here? And I was like, wow, I let that whole thing dissolve. Yeah. I let it disappear because I got disconnected. Mm-hmm. And so what I really am hoping we can do is stay connected to them. And also by sharing these stories, what I hope it can do is inspire diaspora who have resources or tools or knowledge, anything that they can, or funds, anything that they can do to help these young innovators grow, to help these legacy builders, these people who are here trying to change their communities, here trying to impact positively. However we can do to support them, instead of having to generate it on your own, why not just partner? Mm-hmm. Partner with somebody who's doing something great already. We're already funding them. We're already giving them an accelerator program. Partner with them. Mm-hmm. Get a group of your community to come together and partner with them. If that's too much, give $1 a day to ETF for us to continue doing programs like this, right? If you don't want to get super involved, but you still want to feel like, okay, what? Because propaganda that I am not partaking in is that I don't have enough to make a change. Oh, I like Ethiopia's needs are too much. Even if I were to try give $1 a day, it wouldn't make a difference. If I gave €10 a month, it's not going to make a difference. Yes, it does. We were able to fund the GRV summit solely by diaspora funding, and so I think that's the thing that I'm trying to convince people as much as I possibly can. Is like, yes, I believe in this youth. Yes, they deserve it. Yes, they're worthy of it. I'm so proud of the changes that they're making. And what I want to do is to show them their peers that are doing these amazing things, to excite them, ignite them. Maybe they'll partner with each other. Maybe they'll find ways to these people. Maybe they can find ways to intern or support with each other, right? It's like, we got to give them examples of things that are doing well. So my message to them is, don't give up, right? If you see something and you feel like you have an idea, just start making it, because even our finalists didn't know they were going to get funding from GRV. GRV wasn't even invented yet by that time. A lot of these people started. You never know, right? And hopefully the work that we're doing right now to shift the narrative is going to be in your favor. And I'm going to do the best that I can. I know there's lots of others that are dedicated and working hard towards building a better Ethiopia for you. You deserve it. We all deserve it. So my message is don't lose hope. My message is don't lose hope. Mm-hmm. And don't let the cynicism of the community around you inform you. If you have an idea you think is worth, try it. Try it. Don't be like me and have this one thing and then have somebody remind you a decade later about it and be like, where is it, Yeah. Hold each other accountable. Like, come together. You'll be surprised at what you can do. Reach out to these finalists. Ask them how they got started, how you can help. Even just by sharing their mission and messages is a big thing in itself. Did I answer the question?
Yeah, definitely. That's really deep. And, I want us to talk about different issues. It would take us the whole night.
The whole night.
Yeah, definitely. So at some point we have to stop.
I don't. It's 10:30.
But this is going to be the first time, but not the last. And we'll be having conversations and after conversations. We'll be talking about different things that are common to Ethiopia and the experience of the diaspora, the experience of people living in different parts of the world. But who cares about Ethiopia? So I had fun, meaning, and depths from everything that we talked about. So I like our conversation. It's really worth it. That's really big. Thank you for coming. And if there is anything missing that you want to say at the end,
Yeah.
this is the time to say it.
Perfect.
Yeah.
I'd like to say, Abrish, that I am so proud of you for how you're using your voice, how you're using your platform. And it's a testament to how valuable what you're putting out into the world is, how quickly you're growing is a testament to that, I'd say. And you deserve it. And when I'm talking about sharing narratives, this is a great example of doing it, right? An authentic and organic way of telling stories. We need this. We need this very badly. And so the work that you're doing, you know, I know it's hard to put yourself out there, but you're doing it with grace.
Thank you.
You're doing it with responsibility. Like, you're doing it responsibly. And I'm so honored to be on here.
Thank
you for having me.
much.
I felt like I bullied my way into this. I was like, when's my episode? But I enjoyed the opportunity to be able to share this and say it for myself as well too, because it's, you know, sometimes you can have all these feelings, but being able to have a chance to do it with an audience allows people to connect with you.
Yeah.
And the whole point of me making this content in the world is, one, to educate, but also to connect to others. Because
Sure.
I think your passions and the things you're drawn to are what build your community. And your community is are the enablers for the impact that you're meant to make.
Absolutely.
So I hope that I meet people from this episode who reach out because they're excited about what I said and have ways for me to grow and learn. I hope that I get to come back on here again and we get to do something together another time. Maybe I'll interview you. I bet they want to see that. You want to see that? I don't.
I'm really excited and honored to have you in here. And the next time we have this conversation in here, it will be a 5-hour conversation, maybe.
I don't know if it'll be 5 hours. You might be too famous for me by then. I got to catch up with you. Yeah.
I'm blushing.
Listen, I don't have a podcast, okay? I've been talking about having one, but I don't. So you actually did it.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.